What's up, everyone, and welcome to Save the Game Media's review discussion for Sea of Stars, the indie Japanese role-playing inspired game from Sabotage Studios. I rolled credits mere hours ago, but I am joined by my brother Kyle, who beat it, I think, yesterday. Is that right?
Yeah, yesterday afternoon.
Yeah. So we're going to go over Sea of Stars. I know it just came out, but we didn't get a review code, so this will act as our review for the game. It is on Game Pass and PlayStation Plus for those who are interested. It's also on Nintendo Switch and PC if you don't have those subscription services. But we both rolled credits on the game. We're excited to talk about it. So let's dive right in. No wasted time here. Kyle, what is your overall impressions of Sea of Stars?
It's a really good game. It exceeded all my expectations, I think, and I was I was surprised at how well made the game is overall. I never played The Messenger, but I have heard good things, and I definitely want to go check it out now after playing Sea of Stars. I'm glad that it seems that Microsoft and Sony both ponied up money and kind of covered what I mean, the cost was already covered because it was kickstarted, but they got even more money to put it on Game Pass and PS Plus. So it kind of secures their future. They've already sold 100,000 copies. It's on Switch. It's still selling. But I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I would echo the same. Obviously, this is an interesting title because when it was announced, it wasn't originally announced for Xbox platforms. There was a lot of like, is this coming to Xbox? And then we got the surprise, yes, it's coming to Xbox. And then later on during the indie showcase, we found, or I think it was the Xbox Extended Showcase for their E3 conference. It's coming to Game Pass as well, so it was super exciting. Then PlayStation obviously also threw them a load of cash. I'm not sure if I'm going to play The Messenger. I think it's more of a puzzle game if I remember correctly. But this game definitely I would echo what you're saying, exceeded my expectations. I was excited for it because I was like, oh, it's Chrono Trigger inspired. It's an homage to old school JRPGs, which we obviously love. We grew up playing those, and I was excited to dive in. But then review scores came out, and I think that's really when my hype started getting, when it like was sitting at a 95, and I think it's dropped to an 89 now after more reviews have come in. But just seeing all the hype and the excitement and reading the reviews, seeing everything coming in, just got me so excited to play it. Like more than Starfield for the last week. I've been really addicted to Sea of Stars, and I think just because you look at it and it's obviously a pixel art game, but it's absolutely gorgeous. The world is so colorful, it's so vibrant, and then you have these wonderful characters where there's no voice acting, but I feel like they were really brought to life because everything's so fleshed out in the short runtime that the game actually has. It's not a 60, 70-hour JRPG, and I feel like they do such a good job in making you feel invested in the world and the characters in the story. And I have no complaints with this. Well, I have a few minor nitpicks here. Nothing that ever detracted from my experience. So like right now, this is my game of the year. I haven't dived into Starfield yet. That's waiting for me, but this game is so good. I want to first open it up. Let's talk about characters first, Kyle, because obviously JRPGs live and die by their characters, by their parties. So, who
Yeah.
stood out for you in this? And no, we're not doing any spoilers here for anyone worried about that. So, we're going to talk about the characters that join your party as loosely as we can. So, take it away.
Yeah, I'm not gonna spoil who she is or her role, but Sarai is the character's name, who plays the assassin role
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like old JRPGs where you would have class based like job systems and stuff. They really drove that point home like right in the beginning of the game, when the two main characters are like self-choosing their own like
Mm-hmm.
job basically. And I think it was cool that everyone basically, even ridiculous ones, for some of the characters, but she was probably the standout character for me. um I think her gameplay was the most fun. And I think that her overall story and the arc and everything that she went on through the story really just made her stand out compared to a lot of the other ones. There were, I mean, obviously Zale and
Valerie.
Valerie. That's her name. I just said it like two minutes ago. Obviously, Zale and Valerie, I think, are really well done characters, and I think that they kind of play off each other in a good way. And then the relationship with Garl, I think, is mostly. I think that's mostly the appeal of those three characters is their friendship and relationship together. Whereas some of the other characters, it's more about the world in general. I will say my least favorite character was probably Bisht.
Oh,
Or
really?
however you say his name.
That's fine.
Yeah, I just I mean, like gameplay wise and like mechanically, his moves were fine. I felt like he was just kind of tacked on though. I know he wasn't because of there's a true ending for this game for anyone who doesn't know. So I know he wasn't actually, but when I first got him, that's what I initially thought. So I kind of had and you get less time with him compared to everyone else. So
Yeah. Yeah, he does join the party later in the game. I'd say probably the last 5 hours you get to spend with him versus the other characters, which are there for much longer. Like Valerie, Zale, and Garl are obviously there the majority of the game. And I would echo a lot of what you're saying. I do think Valerie and Zale come off a little anime tropey at points where they're like, through the power of friendship, we can accomplish anything. They
yeah.
get power ups at certain points, like because of that. It does fall into those tropes, but I do think there is something to be said about the way their relationship progresses and some of the events that happen throughout the story. That actually had we talked about it offline, but like a surprise emotional impact when certain things happen that like you don't think are going to happen because the game is like very upbeat and cheerful for long periods of time. You're like, that's that's not what this is. But there are emotional beats throughout this game that I think really hit home, especially when you get into the later stages in the game. As you were saying with Sarai, with Bish, who I just liked his design. I liked the mechanics, like his moves were a lot of fun. I actually found
Yeah.
myself using him a lot more. My main party was Valerie, Zale, and Sarai for the majority. Like if I could stick with those three and get through most battles, I would. Just because I think they had the best move sets. Like Valerie had the Moonerang or whatever, was probably my favorite move in the game. But the characters I didn't really vibe with were Rashawn. I just nothing really screamed like he's cool from a story perspective, but in terms of like his gameplay and his design, nothing really appealed to me about that character. And I don't know, it just probably my least favorite in the game, and that's after I know I made jokes about Garl because I think he's like a buffoon, but he's like a lovable buffoon at a point.
Yeah, I think that's the role that he kind of fell into though.
He reminds me. I made jokes. He reminds me of and I've never seen Game of Thrones, but I imagine he's Hodor. Like that is the Hodor type
Oh, I was
character.
thinking of Hodor the entire time. I think
Yeah,
when he would do stupid things, I was like, you're like Hodor.
but then he's so lovable. Like everyone in the game falls in love with Garl, and it's really endearing. So Valerie is obviously my favorite character from the design standpoint. I think the best character sprite by far. The blue hair with the staff, just really awesome. Not to say Zale isn't cool looking, but Valerie just really blows it out of the park. I think the Sabotage really knew what they were doing here when they made these two main characters.
What I like about the art too is that when there's like a dialogue text box, you get that like unpixelated, kind of like clean art image of them talking.
Yes.
And I thought all of those did a really good job with emotion and uh, giving you a better look at the characters because some of those are just really well done and beautiful. So
Yeah. The game is gorgeous, especially there were points when you're going through like dungeons or environments, And because it's a 3D space, but you're operating on kind of like a 2.5D almost plane where you can like hop into the background at some points, I would occasionally find that like, oh, I didn't see this ledge because I thought it was like in the background, but it's actually like to the side of me. It's just the perspective. I thought they did really well with the art, especially in the final dungeon. There was times where I thought I was like on a on a runway and it was
Yeah.
actually below it, and then I was like, oh, I have to go up the stairs. Like just the way they played with perspectives, I thought this game is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, it really captured a lot of the old school Chrono Trigger, old school Final Fantasy vibes. Whereas something like Octopath Traveler, for instance, while it looks gorgeous,
Mm-hmm.
the map for that game is basically just like a still image that you walk
Yeah,
around on. So it's not really the same. I think I prefer the way Sabotage has done it.
I do.
I think it's just more engaging, and there's the one it's like very early on in the game where you get to that like coral reef area.
Oh yeah, so
Oh,
beautiful.
that place is gorgeous. I went up and down that place like 3 times, and I was like, this is the most beautiful place in the game.
Uh, Speaking of the environments, because I did want to touch on this, I think because this is an old school JRPG style game, I was worried that they would modernize it and they wouldn't have puzzles, because that is like the trend in a lot of JRPGs these days, where it's just hallways or we don't want players to think. I will say the puzzles here, none of them are difficult. Not a single one. Like a lot of them are like move the blocks with like your ring into like certain areas, or activate a switch here and then go. Like I didn't find any puzzle I ever had to like really think. It was kind of like intuitive, but I appreciated that they were there. It wasn't simply run through hallways and get to the next boss encounter, get to the next enemy room. I actually had to stop and like do things to unlock chests and to unlock the next pathway. That is what I want in JRPGs.
I mean, I agree with everything you just said. I will say that I also liked that there are really like side quests in this game, but they're not like directly given to you. They're kind of just like, oh, I talked to this person and they want me to do this, or I found this random thing on the map and I wonder what happens if I do all these things. And they're completely optional, but you get pretty cool rewards if you do them. And just because you were talking about puzzles, there is one side quest that it doesn't tell you what to do, and the puzzle to
Mm.
solve it is so obtuse and abstract that unless you're like, I don't know, super dialed in and like, or just, I don't know, thinking at like a 5D like IQ, like you're transcending the plane of the game. I don't think you would figure it out without like trial and error. Uh, but that was the only one. Everything else I thought was, like you said, pretty easy or manageable. I digged the equipment that you get. It kind of reminded me a little Zelda like when you would go through like and get like when you got the like grapple hook and stuff.
Oh, the grappling hook. I use the grappling hook to engage every enemy.
Every anime, yeah, because you get the advantage. And I thought that was a cool way to do that. So that, it definitely took a lot of influences from things outside of just JRPGs, but I think it melded them together very well.
Yeah. And I will say, I think this game is pretty accessible for JRPG fans and non JRPG fans, because they have things, the relics, right? And I used the same 2 relics the entire game. I don't know what you were doing, but the relics I had on were the ones where it healed me after every battle and gave me a star indicator when I nailed the timing of like defense,
Oh, I
offense, or
love that
certain
one.
moves. That because that's the way I knew like when to block to continue my combos. And I want to say like the game's turn based for anyone that is unaware, but it is interactive turn based. And what I mean by that is if you hit A at the right time during your attack, you'll do additional damage. If you hit A or X on PlayStation, you can at the right time to block, you'll take less damage. So they kind of keep the player engaged in that way. And this is controversial for some people. Don't like this. I like the system. I think like you don't have to do it. You can just keep the controller down and still succeed. But I think it adds a bit of more creativity and fun to the combat.
I will say that I did get slightly not annoyed, but tired of bouncing the boomerang after the 800th time I've done it.
Well, I think that leads into my one critique is I think there's very limited move sets in this game. Each character has like 4 moves, right? That they like 3 and then an ultimate. Is that what it is?
3 and then an ultimate, and then they have combo moves with everyone in the party.
Yeah, so it's a very limited selection of moves. So you're going to see the same animations over and over, and like you can't turn them off, you can't fast forward them, especially some of those alts. While beautiful because they changed the art style and everything, like they do get cumbersome.
Yeah, I would echo that. I would also say that there's not. I mean, while there is upgrades for like equipment, there's not a huge plethora amount of like diversity. It generally in every time you'll get an upgrade, it basically increases like the exact same stats for your character. I would have liked to see like the choice between like 2 swords for Zael, one that increases this, one increases this, or like decreases one while increasing other massively. Just a little more diversity in the weapons you choose and how you want to play. But overall, I thought that stuff was fine. And I basically stuck to the same rings the entire time. And same. I would just upgrade them as I went with, if I found like a better version, like, oh, this one gave me 15 health. This one gives me 30, or this one gives me 60, stuff like that. So yeah, that stuff was all fine. That was just me nitpicking. It's not like an actual critique.
Yeah. I think that I think for hardcore JRPG fans, which I consider us, that we are always looking for like that more depth in the character building for the equipment. I think this would lend itself. It's still more in depth than Final Fantasy 16's character equipment system for sure, but I think this will be a basic system for those that are looking for that. Like some people will appreciate that. I do want to talk about. Because when a character levels up, I did like the fact that you got to choose like an additional stat bonus that they got. So like for anyone that doesn't know, when you level up, you get the selection of 4 different things. You could choose to increase like magic attack, magic defense, mana points, or HP, for example. And then you get to choose one, and that'll give you an additional boost on top of their already boosted stats from their level up.
What level did you end the game at?
Around 20, I think 19 or 20.
Oh, okay. I think I beat it at like 18. So, and I don't know if this happened to you, but once you get up to like those numbers or whatever, all your stats are kind of pushing like 100 plus for each category or whatever. And eventually it stopped giving me 4 options.
Yeah,
and it only gave me 3 options.
Yeah, for certain characters.
Yeah, so I was like, okay. I was like, now I have to like go to those other attributes because I guess I've invested the total amount that I can extra in these ones. So I thought I thought that was interesting. I didn't expect it to only give me 3, but I still, I just went with my second choice. I was like, oh, a magic attack or physical attack. Sure.
I didn't choose defense once. It was health, mana points, or some form of attack. That's literally all I cared about for every character.
I never chose health.
Really?
Never. I never chose it.
I had like Garl and Bist like pushing 600 HP. Like they were monster tanks.
I had them over 500. I didn't have them at 600, but I had them over 500. But yeah, I just never chose HP. I wanted to choose mana or one of the other defense or attack points.
Yeah. So let's talk about the story, non-spoilerly. What do you think about the story? Because for me, I think it does a good job of starting. And some people I've heard say the first hour is slow. I thought the first hour is pretty interesting. It gave me like it made me want to learn more about the world with Zale and Valerie. And I think the story goes places that I didn't expect. Obviously, some twists are very obvious and they're meant to be obvious. Um, and some of the writing is corny or cheesy, or it has that kind of old school flavor where they know this is a silly game.
I'd say almost campy
Campy
sometimes.
is a good word to describe it. Yeah. But there, like I was saying, there are dark moments in this game, especially towards the end. And I would say that this game has one of my favorite transitions. And I can't say really more than that from like one area to another. I'll say has one of my
Oh.
favorite transitions that I've seen in maybe video games because it absolutely blew me away.
I know what you're talking about. I thought it was gorgeous, and part of me was wondering. I was like, oh, are we gonna like switch to this like permanently? Is this like some major thing?
That would have been crazy.
That would have been crazy. But either way, it was still beautiful. So the story is divided up into basically I'd say three arcs.
Okay.
Would you agree with that? I'd say that at least two, because I think there's a clear like midway point where the story kind of shifts.
Yeah,
but it's not at the midway point, which is why I said dividing it into three makes more sense.
Yeah, I get what you're saying now, because I was like, I was thinking about it as two because of the more like a light and a dark almost, but the one that happens in the later half of the game. So if we do three, it makes more sense tonally, I think.
Yeah. So I would say that I'd say the first part of the story, super uplifting, super positive, like happy vibes all around.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Then
I'd say gets the player excited. It's like, oh, I want to be in this world.
Yeah, it introduces you to the world, introduces you to the characters. You feel like you're on an adventure with your friends doing something good. Then in the second part, it gets a little darker. And I'm like, okay, I didn't see that coming. What are we gonna do now? So you're feeling a little like lost, but kind of like I think you're feeling how the characters are feeling because you didn't see this coming. And then the third part, I felt nothing but pain and depression the entire time. I'm like, everything is until the end, obviously. But I'm like, this is as bleak as it gets. I don't know how we can go darker than this right now. Which is why when I see people online, especially on like Reddit or things like that, criticize it for being like childish or like cliche or kiddie. While there are parts of that I think are probably true in some ways, I think that's a very reductive argument and criticism because a lot of them aren't seeing the story all the way through.
Or even partially through.
Yeah. So I like the story. I think it gives you the option to do the true ending, and to play, kind of play how you want. You could either like look up the true ending, you could do the true ending, or you could just be satisfied with the normal ending. I think the normal ending is completely fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, and I think it tells a complete story. So I think they did a good job.
So that's interesting that you said that, because one of my feelings was when I beat it today, I was surprised that it ended where it did. I thought there was one more boss after the boss I fought, and when it went to an awesome, like, it wasn't a boss, but it was an awesome.
The like credits thing.
Yes.
Oh my god!
For anyone that I'm just gonna say, Super Smash Brothers Ultimate credits. That's all I could think of. If you know what I'm talking about, then you'll know this.
Cool.
It was so cool. but I was like, is this supposed to be the final boss? Because that that took me by surprise. I was surprised it ended where it ended. I thought there would be a little more resolution with one of the antagonist characters instead of just like, you beat me, like that's it, so that was weird to me. I assume, and I haven't looked it up, I assume the true ending has more to it to deal with that.
I'll tell you what it is off air.
Okay. Okay. Great. But I like where we end the game. I like the there's like flash forwards and we get to see like into the future and some nods. I like everything how they wrap it up. Nothing felt open at the nothing felt open majorly at the end. Like I can walk away from Sea of Stars feeling like, okay, I had a great 20 and a half hours with this game because like I said, this is a short JRPG experience if you want it to be. It's very linear. It is an open world. Like you get the option to explore and do some side quests towards the end. But if you want to just like go, this is the perfect game for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree.
So, Kyle, probably put this up on the X Talk feed under Game Pass in review. It is on PS Plus as well. But would you recommend Sea of Stars?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you have Game Pass or PS Plus. The cost to entry is so low. But even if you just want to buy it, like it's not $70, is it?
No,
I
it's
don't know.
35.
Yeah, that's well worth the price. That's almost. I mean, some people say they can't beat. They're beating it in 30 hours. That's almost $1 an hour. That's totally reasonable. So either play it on one of the services or buy it, but support Sabotage. They did fantastic.
Yeah, this is a definite recommend, must play for me. I cannot sing the praises of this game enough. And I will say, I played it on Series X. You played it on Series X. I also played it on my ROG Ally. And if you have,
I played it on my
you did.
Ally yesterday. Yeah.
So it runs on the Ally 1080p, 120 FPS locked. Absolutely phenomenal. You don't need 120 for this game, but it is gorgeous. So I say that to say if you have a Steam Deck, if you have a Nintendo Switch, this is a perfect handheld game.
Oh yeah, and it's play anywhere, so your save goes back and forth on Xbox. Just saying.
Yeah, I played on my PC too. I would have a game on one screen, Sea of Stars on the other. So I was playing on all three devices. So I had the whole runs amazing everywhere. So no issues, no bugs, no technical issues. Highly, highly recommend.
I did have one crash.
Okay.
But my Xbox has been doing that, so I don't know if that's an Xbox thing or that's just a game thing. I'm not sure
Sounds
what's
like
going
your
on.
Xbox is dying.
No, I hope not. But then also I did have one bug where I left one screen, and then because I had to reset a puzzle or whatever, because I had somehow gotten the puzzle to an unsolvable state and I couldn't solve it. Like it wasn't possible, so I had to leave, and then I went to come back and it wouldn't let me go through the doorway, and I was like, oh no. So then I went to another screen and then walked back, and it had reset itself by then. But that was it. Other than that, as long as you're not an idiot like I am.
Nice, nice. Well, everyone, let us know your thoughts in the comments down below if you're playing Sea of Stars. If you want to come join the Discord, chat with us about Sea of Stars, Starfield, a bunch of other games. Spider-Man 2 is going to be coming out soon. We're going to be doing review discussions for all these games. So we appreciate anyone watching this, listening to it, supporting us. Thank you for all of your kindness, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.